These Carnivore Pizza Pockets completely surprised me. The outside turns golden and crisp, while the inside stays soft, cheesy, and packed with savory pizza flavor. And the best part? The entire dough is made from simple animal-based ingredients. For the dough, we'll be using 1 cup of raw cubed chicken breast, 1.5 tablespoons of cream cheese, a pinch of unrefined sea salt, 3 tablespoons of egg whites, 1 tablespoon of grated Parmesan, 2 teaspoons of sour cream, 3 tablespoons of skim milk powder, 1 tablespoon of egg white protein powder or egg white powder, 1 tablespoon of pork panko, and 1 tablespoon of melted, unsalted butter. And for the filling, we'll be using dry cubed mozzarella or any other cheese of your choice, and sugar-free pepperoni or any other meats that you'd like to try out for your recipe. Here we have the cold cubed raw chicken breast and all the other ingredients measured out. To the food processor, we'll be adding all the ingredients and blending in between each addition to make sure that things are kept smooth and even. Using the chicken cold is important here, as it helps the mixture stay thick and easier to work with later on. I really love using this little KitchenAid food processor for recipes like this. Since it's cordless, I can move around the kitchen freely without worrying about having to find an outlet or dealing with an extra cord on the counter. It's also incredibly quick and easy to clean afterwards, which makes this whole process feel a lot more effortless. One thing I've really been enjoying a lot lately is exploring ways to create more practical handheld carnivore meals that still feel comforting and familiar. Recipes like this take quite a bit of testing behind the scenes, especially when trying to balance structure, texture, and moisture without making the dough too heavy and dense. There were a few versions along the way that looked promising at first but completely changed once they hit the pan. So seeing these finally cook up with a crisp exterior and a soft, cheesy center was a really satisfying moment to this experience. For the full recipe card and nutritional breakdown, please visit carnivorecollections.com. As the ingredients begin combining, you'll notice the texture gradually transforming into a smooth, sticky, dough-like mixture. We're looking for a consistency that is moldable and spreadable, but not loose and runny. Be careful not to overprocess the mixture, otherwise it can become a little bit too airy and soft. Once everything is fully incorporated and no large pieces remain, the dough is ready to chill before shaping into our pizza pockets. And now we'll move on to preparing the filling. Here I'm using mozzarella cheese, though you can use any cheese you prefer. Just make sure it's a firmer, drier style cheese rather than a soft, high moisture variety. I've cut the mozzarella into small cubes and will place them in the fridge or freezer briefly to help them firm up and reduce the cheese from leaking during cooking. After dicing the pepperoni into smaller pieces, we'll lightly cook it to draw out some of the excess oil. This also helps concentrate the flavor and prevents the filling from becoming overly greasy inside the pizza pockets. Once slightly crisped, transfer the pepperoni to a bowl and allow it to cool slightly before assembling. This step may seem small, but it really does help improve the final texture and structure of the filling. To help create an evenly shaped pizza pocket, I'll be using a tortilla press. This makes it much easier to achieve the consistent thickness throughout the dough and helps with the pockets cooking more evenly. It also speeds up the shaping process and gives the finished pockets a cleaner, more uniform appearance. If you don't have a tortilla press, you can also flatten the dough with a rolling pin or gently by hand between 2 pieces of parchment paper. I'll be using 8-inch parchment rounds for this process, and my personal preference is always natural unbleached parchment paper. It's a simple detail, but I like using materials that are a little bit cleaner and less heavily processed whenever possible. The parchment also makes it easier for softer doughs like this to be shaped, transferred, and cooked without sticking or tearing. After dividing the dough into thirds, carefully shape each portion into a small ball and place it onto the parchment rounds. As you work, feel free to transfer small amounts of dough between portions to help keep the sizes as even as possible. If you prefer more precision, you can also weigh each portion using a kitchen scale. At this stage, we're simply portioning and smoothing out the dough before pressing and filling the pizza pockets. The dough should feel soft and pliable, but still firm enough to hold its shape when handled. If it feels overly sticky while working with it, lightly dampen your hands with some water or a small amount of tallow to make shaping easier. We'll now place each dough portion into the tortilla press and cover the top with another piece of parchment paper. This helps prevent sticking and allows the dough to press more evenly without tearing. Gently press just until the dough spreads into a thick round, being careful not to press it too thin. You still want enough thickness remaining to fully support the filling and hold together during cooking. To help reduce waste, I'm going to reuse the top piece of parchment for each pressing. The parchment holds up decently through multiple uses during this process. Small adjustments like this can make the recipe feel a little bit more practical and efficient in the kitchen. It's also a great reminder that you don't always need to use a fresh sheet with every single time while you're working with these types of doughs. And now it's time to fill the pizza pockets. Place a modest amount of pepperoni and cheese into the center of each round, keeping the filling concentrated towards the middle. Be careful not to overfill the dough, as too much filling can cause the pockets to leak or split during cooking. Leaving a clean border around the edges will help create a stronger seal and make the pockets much easier to close. At this stage, a little restraint with the filling really improves the final structure and texture. We'll now carefully fold the dough over the filling and firmly press the seams together until the pocket is fully sealed. Once closed, lightly pinch the edges slightly upward to reinforce the seam and to keep the filling contained during cooking. Take your time with this step, as a strong seal makes a big difference once the pockets hit the heat. If you notice any thinner areas, gently press and smooth the dough to help strengthen the surface before cooking. We'll be using beef tallow to cook these pizza pockets, as it gives a beautiful golden finish and a rich savory flavor. Add a few tablespoons to the pan and allow it to fully melt over medium-low heat. You want enough tallow to lightly coat the surface so that the pockets can crisp evenly without sticking. For even more savory flavor, we'll also be adding a spoonful of bacon grease from this container that I keep in the kitchen for everyday cooking. The bacon grease adds an extra depth of richness while helping keep the exterior beautifully crisp. Once the fat has fully melted, we'll place the pizza pockets directly into the pan while they are still resting in the parchment paper. This allows the exterior to gently firm up and hold its shape before we carefully remove the parchment. Since the dough starts off quite soft, this step really helps prevent sticking and tearing during the initial stage of cooking. One of my favorite pans to cook with is this enameled cast iron pan. It heats very evenly and works beautifully for recipes like this where gentle, consistent heat is important. It's become one of those reliable pieces in my carnivore kitchen that I reach for again and again. Let me know in the comments what one comfort food you've been missing the most since moving towards a carnivore or animal-based way of eating. I always enjoy hearing about the foods and flavors that people are trying to recreate in their own kitchens. If you'd like the full recipe card along with the complete nutrient breakdown, you can always find everything at carnivorecollections.com. I always enjoy sharing the deeper recipe notes and nutritional information there to help support you with your own carnivore lifestyle. And here we have our carnivore pizza pockets. The exterior has turned beautifully golden with a light, crisp finish. You can really see how well the dough holds together while still keeping a tender bread-like texture, the one that we were aiming for. The pocket feels substantial without being too heavy, making them perfect as a meal, snack, or make-ahead option. Once slightly cooled, they slice beautifully and hold their shape well. Inside, you can see the melted cheese layered together with the pepperoni filling. These also reheat very nicely in the air fryer or toaster oven, making them a great option for busy days. Thank you so much for spending time with me in the kitchen today. If you enjoyed this recipe, be sure to subscribe for more creative carnivore meals, and I'll see you in the next video.